1971, John List shot and killed his mother, wife, and 3 children. It was a crime that shocked not only the small town of Westfield, New Jersey, but the entire nation. Many of you watched tonight's CBS movie Judgment Day, the John List story. It was about the New Jersey accountant who slaughtered his entire family and managed to escape arrest for 17 years. We went to find out what the real John List was like and what might have driven him to murder.
You look at that. As the children were coming home, he would execute them one by one. And then the son, John, he put multiple gunshots into that boy's head. I mean, it was just horrific. I mean, it was just like beyond the pale.
Obviously, you knew it was him.
One thing you never forget, something like that you never think would happen or you'd come upon.
List had just disappeared.
For example, that he shot his family because they were all they were basically based on financial reasons.
This I knew was a very nice man, and probably the last person you would have thought would have done something like this.
Figured that being poor and essentially going to the poorhouse was some kind of sin.
This didn't get televised. There was just no way that we were going to get List's image and face and story out across the country.
John Emil List was born September 17, 1923 in Bay City, Michigan. He lived with his father John List Sr. and his mother Alma Barbara List. He attended Bay City High School before graduating and joining the Army in 1943 working as a laboratory technician. When John was discharged from the Army in 1946, he decided to further his education by enrolling at the University of Michigan, where he obtained a bachelor's degree in business administration and a master's degree in accounting. John was well accomplished and respected for his military service and overall college success. He would later go on to marry a woman by the name of Helen Morris, December 1, 1951, in Baltimore, Maryland, before relocating to Kalamazoo, Michigan to accept a supervisor position at a paper company. During this time, Helen gave birth to 3 children, John, Patricia, and Frederick. As his promotions increased, his job opportunities did too, eventually landing him a job as vice president working at a bank in Jersey City, New Jersey, just before moving his family and his mother into a new home in Westfield, New Jersey. It was a beautiful spacious mansion with 19 bedrooms built by John Samuel Augustus Wiki in 1896 called the Breeze Hill Mansion. John was the sole provider for the family, but he didn't mind being the breadwinner while Helen carried out her duties as a stay-at-home mom caring for the children full-time. They lived peacefully in a quiet neighborhood as they raised their children. Because religion was highly regarded in the Lists' household, John made sure that they attended church every week, even volunteering occasionally to teach Sunday school at a local Lutheran church. In 1971, John received devastating news. Due to the bank's closure, he was laid off, losing his president position for good. Eventually, he ran out of ways to cope with the fact that he was unemployed at 46. He felt as though the American dream was over, and he somehow needed a way out. He couldn't handle the stress of feeling like a failure, so he kept it a secret. The last thing he wanted was for his loved ones to find out what was really going on with him. Although John was swimming in debt, to him, government assistance wasn't an option, so he figured that the best solution to his problem was to kill the entire family. In his mind, by doing things this way no one would ever find out about his recent failures. The day of November 9, 1971, the List family started their day as usual. Everyone did their morning regimen before John joined his wife Helen, who was seated in the kitchen enjoying a cup of coffee. When the kids left for school, all hell broke loose, as John shot his wife point-blank range. Immediately, he headed towards the stairs to search for his mother Alma, who was sleeping, before he fired a fatal shot, instantly killing her. He then patiently waited for his 2 younger children to return home from school because he still wasn't done carrying out his plan. Shortly after they arrived, he decided to shoot them both in the head. John prepared a meal for himself in the same kitchen that he murdered his wife in. His next destination was the bank because he wanted to close his account along with his mother's. He moved with a sense of urgency as he headed towards his eldest son's soccer game. He enjoyed the soccer game before driving home to execute his son the same way that he did the others. However, this time he delivered more shots, shooting him around 13 times. Next, John cleaned the crime scene, removing family photos and packing his belongings. He placed the dead bodies in sleeping bags before writing a few letters to leave behind for his pastor, mother-in-law, and to Helen's sister to justify his actions. Classical music played throughout the house, loud enough for bystanders to hear, but because it was normal for him to blast his music daily, no one suspected anything. John turned on every light in the house before lowering the heat and leaving behind the life that he no longer wanted. He looked over the letter that he wrote to his pastor one more time, checking for any errors. Dear Pastor Rewinkle, I am sorry to add this additional burden to your work. I know that what has been done is wrong from all that I have been taught, and that any reasons that I might give will not make it right. But you are the one person that I know that, while not condoning this, will at least possibly understand why I felt that I had to do this. 1. I wasn't earning anywhere near enough to support us. Everything I tried seemed to fall to pieces. True, we could have gone bankrupt and maybe gone on welfare. 2. But that brings me to my next point. Knowing the type of location that one would have to live in, plus the environment for the children, plus the effect on them knowing they were on welfare, was just more than I thought they could and should endure. I know they were willing to cut back, but this involved a lot more than that. 3. With Pat being so determined to get into acting, I was also fearful as to what that might do to her continuing to be Christian. I'm sure it wouldn't have helped. For, also, with Helen not going to church, I knew that this would harm the children eventually in their attendance. I had continued to hope that she would begin to come to church soon. But when I mentioned to her that Mr. Jutza wanted to pay her an elder's call, she just blew up and said she wanted her name taken off the church rolls. Again, this could only have an adverse result for the children's continued attendance. So that is the sum of it. If any one of these had been the condition, we might have pulled through, but this was just too much. At least I'm certain that all have gone to heaven now. If things had gone on, who knows if this would be the case. Of course, Mother got involved because doing what I did to my family would have been a tremendous shock to her at this age. Therefore, knowing that she is also a Christian, I felt it best that she be relieved of the troubles of this world that would have hit her. After it was all over, I said some prayers for them all, from the hymn book. That was the least that I could do. Now for the final arrangements. Helen and the children have all agreed that they would prefer to be cremated. Please see to it that the costs are kept low. For Mother, she has a plot at the Frankenmuth Church Cemetery. Please contact Mr. Herman Schelkes, Route 4, Vassar, Michigan 41768. He's married to a niece of Mother's and knows what arrangements are to be made. She always wanted Reverend Herman Zender of Bay City to preach the sermon. But he's not well. Also, I'm leaving some letters in your care. Please send them on and add whatever comments you think appropriate. The relationships are as follows: Mrs. Lydia Meyer, Mother's sister. Mrs. Eva Meyer, Helen's mother. Jean Seifert, Helen's sister. Also, I don't know what will happen to the books and personal things. But to the extent possible, I'd like for them to be distributed as you see fit. Some books might go to the school or church library. Originally I had planned this for November 1st, All Saints' Day. But travel arrangements were delayed. I thought it would be an appropriate day for them to get to heaven. As for me, please let me be dropped from the congregation rolls. I leave myself in the hand of God's justice and mercy. I don't doubt that He is able to help us, but apparently He saw fit not to answer my prayers the way that I hoped they would be answered. This makes me think that perhaps it was for the best as far as the children's souls are concerned. I know that many will only look at the additional years that they could have lived, but if finally they were no longer Christians, what would be gained? Also, I'm sure many will say, how could anyone do such a horrible thing? My only answer is it isn't easy and was only done after much thought. Pastor, Mrs. Morris may possibly be reached at 802 Pleasant Hill Drive. Elkin, home of her sister. One other thing. It may seem cowardly to have always shot from behind, but I didn't want any of them to know even at the last second that I had to do this to them. John got hurt more because he seemed to struggle longer. The rest were immediately out of pain. John didn't consciously feel anything either. Please remember me in your prayers. I will need them whether or not the government does its duty as it sees it. I'm only concerned with making my peace with God, and of this I am assured because of Christ dying even for me. P.S. Mother is in the hallway in the attic, 3rd floor, she was too heavy to move. John. He left 431 Hillside Avenue for good. It was time to be someone else, and act like it never happened. He desperately wanted to put the past behind him, but he needed to steal someone else's identity first. John murdered his family, now it was time to murder the identity of John List. He spent hours, carefully going over his plan before it was written in stone. He chose the name Robert Peter Clark to begin his new journey. John headed to Denver, Colorado by bus because it was imperative to stay under the radar. After getting all the necessary paperwork that he needed for his new identity Robert Clark, he took on a job working as a hotel chef. During his time there it was reported that he was a man of very few words, staying to himself. Nevertheless, they remembered him to be a very polite man though timid. He got along well with his team of co-workers. However, Robert was ready to do something that he was very familiar and good at. And that was being the outstanding accountant in which everyone remembered him to be. Surprisingly, he lucked up and found an accountant position, so he was ready to get back to where he started before the financial hardships occurred. The time to regain his power was now. Once again, he was ready to come up with a new strategy if he wanted to be successful, so he calculated his next steps cautiously and meticulously. Although he was regaining what he thought that he'd lost, he still needed to make sure that no one discovered his secret. He didn't have the time or faith in anyone else besides his pastor to admit his role in the slayings. Although everyone thought of him as the good guy, it would still be a challenge day by day keeping things under wraps. However, it didn't take long for him to yet again meet the love of his life at a church event. He courted a young woman named Dolores Miller, which helped his reputation even more. He remarried in 1983, and went on to live a somewhat normal life, but it was time to relocate, so Robert and Helen packed everything up and moved to Midlothian, Virginia. In fact, he loved Virginia so much that he never left. He actually found a place that was quiet enough to live under the alias Robert Clark for as long as he possibly could. I mean, after all, who could stop him? He cleaned the crime scene to perfection, and he altered his appearance so much that no one could ever pinpoint where he was, or better yet who he was. As for the Lists family, authorities didn't find the bodies until about a month later when a concerned neighbor pushed for a wellness check. They just couldn't think of anyone who would want to do something like this. Meanwhile, John was long gone, but the unveiling of his actions would soon come to surface. America's Most Wanted aired May 1989, a television show made to help find missing children and catch criminals.
Good evening from Washington, D.C. It's Sunday, April 22nd, and I'm John Walsh.
Luckily, John had no idea that the Lists family article was published just 1 month after the murders. However, he was able to go on to live a peaceful life for nearly 18 years before his arrest in 1989.
I began to watch America's Most Wanted.
America's Most Wanted teamed up with an artist by the name of Frank Bender, who created a sketch of what John List would look like over the years. Luckily, a neighbor noticed his photo and contacted authorities. Because his innocent wife had no clue, she didn't bother watching the show. However, when detectives questioned her, she quickly became aware of who her husband really was. A cold-blooded killer. Police arrested John at his accountant office, but the surprising part of it all was that he showed no emotion, and he had very little to say, although he had almost gotten away with murder. The trial exposed John's deep-rooted evil, as he never showed any remorse for the murders.
And today it was the most dramatic testimony of the trial, and it came from the prosecution psychiatrist, Dr. Stevens.
If someone had taken a key and unlocked the mind of a serial killer.
He made very elaborate plans to carry out the killings in a serial fashion.
For some reason, he felt like what he did was fine. Because of this, the jury found John List guilty in 1990, and he was sentenced to 5 consecutive life sentences. Unfortunately, he was able to escape his consequences again. He died due to a health condition while in prison, March 21, 2018.